Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion or all in favor of approval? How do we do this? I can't even see everybody. Is there anybody not in favor of the minutes, approving the minutes? Okay, then I think, Kay, we have unanimous approval for the minutes. Okay. Okay, with that, we'll get to the agenda. And I understand, Jared, you are here somewhere. Jared, our new planning director, is joining.
I am here.
Great. I'm really having a hard time. On my screen is a few people. I'm not really sure who's here, but hello, Jared. Thank you for coming in and sitting in our meeting. And we loved it. A lot of people probably don't know who you are yet, so please tell us.
Yeah. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect. Yeah, I'm Jared Barnes. I'm the new planning director here with the town of Carbondale. And I know you guys have a full agenda, so I'll keep it pretty brief, but just want to kind of say hello. I wanted to meet all the people serving on the various committees, and kind of attend one of your guys' meetings and just hear generally what you're all working on, but also, you know, I think with Bike Ped and some of the comprehensive plan items that are coming up, like a mobility plan or transportation plan, you know, I figured there'd be a lot of interacting with this group. So, you know, I was quite intrigued to kind of hear what all you've been talking about, and how, you know, some of the CAFKey stuff is interacting and interfacing with this group. So yeah, just a quick hello. If you guys see me around town, don't be afraid to stop me and say hello in person. But yeah, you know, I'm just going to kind of be in the background listening and learning from you all.
Great. Thanks, Jared. Again, thanks for joining. Before we, I know we have WeCycles are the first big thing on the agenda. I'd just like to, a couple of things. One, a thank you to Alex, Rick, and Brad for wanting to join the commission. Alec, I think you're a full member at this point. Rick and Brad are on, and thank you for your thoughtful applications. And I'm sure we'll get to those last. I'm sure we'll vote you on, and please feel free tonight to participate in our meeting. And the one other thing I want to, Nikki and Sue, I think, are going to talk about their Walking College action plan. But with this plan that they completed, they each got grants for participating. And Nikki also secured a grant from, what was it, Nikki? Where did you get the $1,000?
The Rebecca Lodge.
Yes. So I think she has contributed all that. They have contributed all that to Bike Ped. So in addition to the $2,500 we had budgeted, we have another $2,000.
$2,100.
$2,100. So thank you, Nikki, for that. Okay, with that, let's get to WeCycle. So I'm not sure who's going, but go for it.
I'll just introduce this quickly, Matt, and then we'll, I'm going to try to share my screen again. And then we have Chris and James from WeCycle here as well. So can everybody see the screen?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So this is the result of a few different meetings between staff, including myself and Jared and the WeCycle crew, at looking at kind of general locations of where we want to put the initial system, if you will, around town. These are not at a specific point, they're in areas. And you can see some of the stats on the different types of stations, different types of bikes on the side. And we wanted to get, I guess, feedback from the board on this map. Is there something that we just completely missed, or in these general areas, does somebody have a strong opinion on, for example, it ought to go at 4th and Main on the south side, not on the north side because of this? We're not looking to reinvent the wheel from the beginning here, but more on just looking at it and saying, is there something that we missed? And with that, I can turn it over to James if you have anything to add.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm James. I don't think I've met most of y'all before. I'm Director of Operations at WeCycle. I've been with the program for about 4 years. Lived in Carbondale for that long as well. I've been in the Valley for almost 10 years now. So nice to meet everybody. Thank you for having us on tonight. I'm happy to sort of field any questions, but thank you for all the hard work in making this a much easier process to start for Kevin and I here, and all the time put in to make Carbondale so bike friendly. We're really excited to serve as a transit system and connect people to essential commerce and other forms of transit. Safe route is one of the biggest keys to having people ride bikes, as I'm sure everybody is aware of. So something we definitely want to focus on and make sure we're aligned with work that's already been done and not undoing things that have already been put in process.
Okay.
Can you enlarge the map, the system overview map, so that we can better see where the stations are proposed?
I will try. Just let me know if this works.
Hey, James, as he's working on that, just a couple other questions. You can continue to talk. There's 17 stations. Are they all going to go in the same time? Are they going to be phased in?
So this would be the opening system. All 17 would come in at once. 15 of those would be just standard bike stations. 2 of them would recharge the e-bikes. The way it works is that any bike could go to any dock at any point in time. So it won't be a situation where you have to return a certain bike to a specific station. They each could go to any. It's all interchangeable.
And obviously, you guys, I'm sure, have found that the more stations you have, the more flexibility it offers, and the better it is for the program.
Definitely. And we've definitely found that there's a balance between like being operationally viable. If we were to make, 20 stations and they were all very small, that would likely just be unavailability, where there would be either no docks available to return a bike or no bikes available to ride. So finding that balance and, being reasonable within the budget of what can work out, we think that this is a good number that will be operationally viable and will provide a reliable service for people.
Okay.
I have a question, James. Are there any tricycles, adult tricycles?
No, not at this point. We have stand-up pedal powered bikes and e-bikes.
Is there any plan to put that in?
Not that I'm aware of at this point. I know that that is something that's been on everybody's radar for a while. I'm not sure that there's a compatible design with our equipment at this point.
Well, we're all staring at this map. If anybody on the commission has any thoughts or questions about locations, I think that's the primary question on the for tonight with these guys. I see that there's one over at River Valley Ranch, the apartments over on Meadowwood, right? I assume another one over by the tennis or pickleball courts. Is that where that other one is on Meadowwood?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. One at the 3rd Street Center, one at the library, I believe, right?
Library's omitted at this point.
Yeah.
Library is omitted. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have one. Where are the locations on 2nd and 4th, I guess? Where are those?
basically by the launch pad and by KDNK.
Okay, and you felt, I suppose, with Third Street and those two, you didn't really need the library, right? Because you're just blocks.
Is there one by Montessori School?
No,
No, Third Street, I think, would be the closest there.
Third Street is across 133.
Mhm.
And there's,
Oh, you're talking Ross or Montessori, not Mount Sobers.
I'm talking about Ross Montessori, yeah.
Yeah, your closest one would be at the Third Street Center.
Well, that's not viable for anybody at Montessori.
there's also another one over on Holland that would connect via bike path.
Yeah, but
And so that was one thing that Kevin and I looked at, was trying to connect the bike paths on each side of his 133 as much as possible here without encouraging crossing at bad places.
so
Do we
are
know
you
what
at-
neighborhood? Sorry. Do we know what neighborhoods have particularly high numbers of short-term rentals, Airbnb kind of thing?
We
I
do
don't
have
know
a
that
map
we
of it
have a
now.
lot of that. Yeah, sorry, Chris.
Hey, Rick, your thought there is that those would be good locations for,
And I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a concentration of those somewhere where we might be missing an opportunity.
right?
I would strongly recommend one by Montessori because that's one of the places where people jaywalk across 133 in a very dangerous way, because the closest way to get to the Third Street Center is either to go all the way down to RVR or down to, Hendrick. And so if there were a station there, then kids who walk would be less likely to jaywalk if they could get to the other side of 133 by riding their bikes.
I'm not sure these bikes are necessarily sized for students under 8th grade in
Oh, and they
particular.
have to be 16, right, in order to get a WeCycle?
Yep,
Yeah, so-
16 with parent
okay.
approval.
Okay, that would, Montessori schools kids wouldn't be eligible.
Yeah, I do wonder though, Nikki, that raises a question about just schools. I mean, teachers, people working at the schools, and I don't see a station at any of the schools, I don't believe.
And CMC is missing too.
So for the 7th and Main is the closest we have to CMC, which you've got about a block there over to
That's pretty
Colorado.
close.
And then for schools, this is one Kevin and I are still working on, but the Roaring Fork Avenue station, which is the one just to the left of Meadowood there on the map, that's sort of on the back side of the middle school campus there. And then
Yeah,
I agree that schools have a very high concentration of employees, which is generally the group that we're looking to hit here is people that are commuting to and from work. The one along Meadowood, if you're taking the bus and you work in the school, that is a significant reduction if you're going to the high school or the middle school, to be able to come down Rio Grande and come in the back way there.
On that Meadowood one, I might be inclined to see if you could work with the developer of that new in housing to see if there's a specific site to park bikes. I know that Colin Laird in our trustee meeting already talked about making sure they had extra bike storage for teachers of their personal bikes within that project, but also maybe if that station is close, splits the difference more towards the high school, it could serve the pickleball courts and the high school and that housing potentially. And then I think also similarly, maybe on the Third Street Center piece, it could be more out at the corner of Capitol Avenue as opposed to sort of buried back by the entrance, so that it would be more visible on the street, and you would be psychologically pretty close to the library in that case. From that station, you'd be splitting the difference again between the Third Street Center and that employee housing and the library, which is sort of 2 blocks down to the north.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think you've done a really good job. I mean, it's hard to, you only have a limited number of stations, and with the number you have, I think you really hit the totally necessary spots in my view.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I wonder if 4th and 2nd are a little redundant, and if one of those stations, maybe the 2nd Street one, would be better up on Snowmass for the school and the church and all up there. But
one thing we found in town, like in the core of commerce, that's where a lot of the trips will either begin or end. And if we don't have enough capacity, that will sort of defeat the trip as a whole. And pretty much throughout the valley, stations that are either at the BRT stop or at the core of town are often the beginning or end point of stations, some of our busiest ones. So our initial concern there was that if we only had one of those two, that we just simply wouldn't have enough docking points.
Yeah. And as I understand from your initial presentations on all this, that these are, you have the ability to move these, and as you see what use is going on. And so this is a thing that will develop over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we plan to have a public outreach period here at the beginning of 2023 to sort of see where people feel that they would ride to and how this would work directly in their day-to-day life, and then sort of adjust some of our sizing with the initial offering based on that. And then we'll see how ridership changes.
Right. And I'll be, again, aside from the school comment, and then Rick's comment, which really, I guess, gets to just what kind of data you guys use to pick stations. It'll be interesting as you guys come to town and we interact with you more to learn some of those things and maybe help guide the direction of some of these. And also looking forward to more bikes on the streets and working with you guys in terms of how you educate riders, safe practices for biking and those kind of things. That's something that we're focused on. So I'm sure this will be the first of more discussions throughout the years, right?
Yeah, and I'm very excited to learn from you all as far as the groundwork that's already been done on safe crossings, safe bike routes, signage, and making sure that that's something where we align into the plan that's already been set up, and where we can really have a safe bike atmosphere for everybody on a WeCycle or not, and that we're not putting stations and locations that are sort of going against what's already been set up.
Right.
I think that's super important. I think bicycles currently, I think we're doing a decent job for cars and a halfway decent job for pedestrians, but bicycles do have a tendency to fall in between the two modes, and oftentimes are either a problematic on sidewalks or problematic contending with street traffic. So that's what we're starting this mobility plan project, and a big part of that, in my view, is really trying to make sure we sort of establish bike routes that sort of are more natural for people to use, I guess.
Okay.
And don't, yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Any other comments for James on the WeCycle locations at this point?
Will there be any educational signage at the stations about bike etiquette and how to ride responsibly?
That is something that has not been determined at this point. We have generally two sides of panel at each station. One side is a map and one side is determined by the community partner. That is something that we are working with town staff, and Kevin might know more than me at this point as far as where we are, but I do not believe that has been determined.
Well, I think that's part of the discussion, and Lori, to your point, if you and more broadly the commission feel like that's an important message to have on those signs, share that now so that's something that we can get into the mix.
I think it is important, especially for visitors who are not well acquainted with bike etiquette. Things about audible signals before passing and about riding in the street rather than on the sidewalks. And no e-bikes on the rafted trail or no class. Are all the e-bikes class 2?
They're all class 1. They're all pedal assist.
Oh,
They all
fine.
cut off at 19 miles an hour. So no throttle.
Okay. Yeah, I think educational
James-
sign.
James, when are these stations when are you expecting to be going in?
To be determined, but summer is what we're hoping for. Everything's been ordered. It's just a matter of shipping constraints at this point.
Yeah, okay. Well, like I mentioned, as Lori's bringing up, we would like to push safety and safe riding practice whenever we can. So maybe we'll take that up as a commission and connect with you at a subsequent meeting to talk about how we can help promote those messages at the stations and just through your operations. Okay.
Awesome. And what I've got from you all today is to be mindful of the Montessori crossing, the Meadowwood development going in to try to collaborate with that, the 3rd Street Center sort of being a little more inclusive of the library zone, and then the signage. And that's all stuff that I can continue to move forward with as we're planning. Is that everything?
Well, I think the Montessori, I think, was related to concerns about crossing, but I think that since the kids won't be using those bikes anyway, I think that's less of an issue. If I got that
Okay.
right. I still think proximity to where people work, which is schools, is important. So I would include it for that reason. Yeah. Okay.
What are Skyhook solar units?
Skyhook is a Carbondale-based startup. You've probably seen them at the 3rd Street Center. I don't know, Kevin, do you have a picture handy there? They're a mobile solar charging unit. So they have, like at the 3rd Street Center, you can charge like an electric car. But we've started a partnership with them where we're able to recharge our e-bikes so we don't have to change batteries or bring them in and plug them into the wall as they do in most big cities.
So I don't have a picture of them, but Lori, do you know the one he's talking about out in front of the 3rd Street Center?
Yeah.
That it would look very similar to that and then be connected to a rack with bikes in it.
And where are those located?
So
That is still to be determined. Kevin, I'll let you talk on that.
I think one of the kind of main locations that we were thinking of because of the space available and the visibility would probably be near the roundabout. And I'm not sure that we landed on the other one. If you have a different recollection, let me know, James, but
That sounds correct to me. I think we were kicking around some other spots and we were looking to get a little bit more into the details of the space available and sort of view plane.
yeah, those, and the reason there's only 2 of those is because they're much more expensive. The other stations will just have more of a standard solar panel look to them versus that kind of V-shaped, higher, larger unit. Did that kind of answer your question, Lori?
Kinda. And the charging docks serve the same purpose.
Yeah, so the charging docks will be at the stations that have the Skyhook unit, and they will recharge the e-bikes. All of the other docking points will essentially just hold an e-bike they all can hold any bike. The charging docks that are associated to the Skyhook unit will recharge bikes that have become low battery.
Are there battery level indicators on the e-bikes?
Absolutely. And they make it about 45 miles per charge, which the station's able to do in between 3 and 4 hours. So I found those work really well at places where people ride in the morning. So if people sort of drop them off in the morning there for us, we get sunlight during the day, they recharge by the time people get back in the evening.
I
They're
would
ready to go.
suggest the Park and Ride might be your other location.
That was our top spot, and we are just super tight on space at the Park and Ride.
Yeah, I imagine.
So that's still in the works. That's to be determined, I would say.
Okay. Guys, thank you very much. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to give some feedback, and we'll look forward to working with you guys as it progresses. Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Kevin. I assume you're working on taking that down, and Nikki and Sue, who attended the walking college, as we know, over the summer, and came out of that with a well thought out project that would help pedestrian safety in Carbondale. And I think we're going to get a presentation from you two guys on that plan and how the commission can work with you guys to keep pushing that forward, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So we also have with us Matt Farrar, who is from Western Coast Consulting, somewhere on the screen. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
So the walking college is a 6-month commitment that Sue and I, one person from CAFD, so Sue from Carbondale Age Friendly Community Initiative. I know that we have new bike ped commissioners here that I haven't even talked with, so that's another conversation about the interface and the working relationship between CAFD and the Bike Ped Commission. But Sue and I attended for 6 months. It was very intensive. It was an overview of the history of transportation in the United States and why we became an auto-centric country, and the move back to bicycles and pedestrians retaking the roadways. The end product of our 6 months, and Sue, just raise your hand and jump in anytime, was to come up with an action plan, which you have in your packets, with the words draft written all over it, because we are a advocacy group. We don't have any power to influence anything other than influencing it. And so we intend to be working with the Bike Ped Commission and Board of Trustees as we move to the Transportation Master Plan. We gathered a lot of data and as we put it together, and Matt has generously given us his time and his wisdom and his expertise in terms of helping us come up with a plan, which we are going to bring about starting this spring with community engagement to give us the feedback that we need along 133. And we did choose 133 as the project for the action plan because that's where we got the most feedback in terms of people feeling very, very unsafe, mostly with regard to crossing from the east side to the west side, and some very, very dangerous intersections. Matt also pulled together a lot of the crash data for us, so we have all of that, which I know is going to be talked about at the Board of Trustees meeting tomorrow. I asked Kevin, do I hear somebody in the background? I don't know whether, so I have a short video that if Kevin can pull it up and show everybody sort of a history of an overview of what we have been studying for the last 6 months. Kevin, are you able to do that?
I will do my best. Just let me know, one, if you see it, and two, if you can hear it, and if
Okay.
there's an echo.
Okay.
Other folks might want to mute then.
Okay.
I'm really trying, folks.
Something's happening, Kevin. There you go.
This is what our roads look like when speed for vehicles gets prioritized ahead of safety for everyone. This is because it's impossible to prioritize both safety and keeping cars moving quickly outside of limited access roads like interstates and freeways. On every other street in mixed-use environments where there are turns, curb cuts, and people walking, biking, or otherwise getting around outside of a car, safety and speed are fundamentally incompatible goals. Over the last decade, we have seen a shocking rise of people being struck and killed while walking. By the end of the decade, these deaths have reached record highs not seen since this guy was president. And then our streets got even more deadly in 2020 and 2021 during the pandemic. One reason for that is that as congestion disappeared, speeds actually increased. And as the speed of vehicles increases, so does the likelihood that a person struck while walking will be killed instead of injured. All that congestion, which states will spend billions to try and eliminate, was potentially keeping traffic deaths in check to some degree. It is possible to balance speed and safety by removing all the people outside of vehicles, as we do with interstates. But when that's not possible, like on every other type of street, transportation agencies have to choose: prioritize speed or safety. To help control speeds, everyone immediately thinks, just lower the speed limits, right? But speed limits on their own are actually less influential than most people think. And the way we set speed limits is completely backwards. We don't design a street so that people will drive a certain desired speed. Instead, we build a street and then set the limit at a speed where only 15% of drivers are exceeding it. If too many people are speeding, the most common response is to just reconsider the speed limit. But we rarely adjust the design of the street to encourage slower speeds. A more holistic approach to safety uses design to shape driver behavior by giving them numerous visual cues to slow down, while creating safer infrastructure meant to serve everyone outside of vehicles. So how do various design decisions shape the behavior of drivers to encourage speed or safety? Streets with overly wide lanes allow room for mistakes and encourage driving at higher speeds regardless of the posted speed limit. This is so intuitive, we may not realize it. All of us who drive have, at some point, realized in a moment of panic that we're exceeding the speed limit without ever intending to. And it probably happened on a road like this, where wide lanes send unspoken but powerful cues to drivers that these roads are built for speed, even though they may have sidewalks and shops along, as well as other streets connecting to it. Narrower travel lanes naturally slow traffic by creating a sense of enclosure and requiring drivers to be more careful and attentive, regardless of the speed limit. Adding streetscaping, trees, parked cars, or other similar elements gives drivers a cue to slow down and pay attention. Intersections are where the vast majority of traffic crashes occur, but all intersections are not created equally. Many streets lack basic essentials like curb ramps and high visibility crosswalks. Some may have crosswalks on only 3 sides rather than all 4. And wide, sweeping corners significantly increase the distance people have to cross and encourage high-speed turns. This street here is actually only 2 lanes wide, but the added extra wide right turn lanes on either side, added to encourage greater speeds and avoid delay for drivers, makes it more like crossing a 6-lane road. signalize high visibility crosswalks, slow drivers down, and make them more aware of people. This helps prioritize the safe movement of people in the intersections rather than getting vehicles through them as fast as possible. The distance people have to cross can be shortened by extending the curves using bulb outs or curb extensions. This also helps make the turns narrower, which forces cars to slow down while making a turn. Long distances between intersections encourage higher speeds with fewer reasons to slow down. While this street sends a clear message to a driver that this road is meant for speed and there are few surprises to worry about, there's nothing to signal to a driver that a pedestrian might cross the street here. Even though in many states, any junction with another street like this one is considered a legal intersection, even if it's unmarked. We are putting drivers in terrible positions with designs like these, setting them up to fail. This is not an interstate, but every visual cue and design decision communicates that speed is the goal, and they don't need to worry about people or conflicts. In addition, they also leave people walking with a terrible choice. They could cross in the middle of a block between two destinations, perhaps unsafely, though often legally, or they might have to spend 20 minutes walking to reach something that's right across the street. That's the choice this mother had to make while trying to get her son to school, right across this same street. Keep in mind that states will spend millions or billions just to shave 1 or 2 minutes off the average car commute. The intersection 10 minutes away from that mom does have crosswalks, but it was never designed to prioritize the safety of people like her and her son. Not with double left turn lanes to maximize vehicle throughput, and 2 slip lanes, and 2 gently rounded corners to allow drivers to make right turns right through crosswalks without ever slowing down. Decreasing the distances between intersections helps reduce those speeds, and adding safe signalized crossings where people already want to walk might add a few seconds to the average vehicle trip through a corridor. But this is precisely what it looks like to deprioritize speed in favor of safety. Lastly, right turn slip lanes exist for one reason and one reason only: to keep vehicles from slowing down on right turns. And they are incredibly dangerous for people walking. They exist because traffic engineers realize that cars turning right, even on a green light, have to slow down, producing dreaded congestion and delay. So to prioritize speed, traffic engineers started adding lanes that allow drivers to make right turns without being required to slow down or stop. Slip lanes make intersections wider than they should be, requiring longer crossing distances, and they put people crossing the street right smack in the path of drivers who are not slowing down. But cities, and especially states, keep building them because moving vehicles quickly and without delay is the outcome that they actually prioritize ahead of safety. Eliminating slip lanes in favor of right angle turns produces slower, safer turns and shorter crossing distances for people. Removing them can also create new space for people walking, or even sidewalk cafes or other businesses. This slip lane in Arlington, Virginia made it possible for drivers to take a right turn at full speed right through a crosswalk into this residential neighborhood. It's still not perfect, but with some simple changes, the crosswalk was moved, the lanes were narrowed, and the slip lane was eliminated to make turns slower and people much safer. Our goal with street design should be to make dangerous behavior difficult and safe behavior easy. Designing roads to be safer and slower by design also reduces the need to rely exclusively on law enforcement, which not only saves money, but also prevents potentially deadly encounters with police for Black and brown people. We will continue in this Groundhog Day loop of ever-increasing deaths of people on foot until we finally unwind this deeply embedded, invisible, yet powerful emphasis on speed. It is completely incompatible with safety.
We all back unmuted. Thank you for bringing that
Is
to.
everybody back?
Yeah. So the action plan that is in your, that's in our packet,
Sorry if I did that.
that's okay, is an attempt to be activists. I mean, that's what CAFD is. We will be bringing it to the town, and maybe Matt Farrar, if he's here, wants to talk a little bit. Do we have time just to talk about the community engagement piece that we're going to be doing in the spring to bring the community into helping us provide data to the town on safety issues?
Yeah, absolutely, Nikki. I think that's where we cross over the most, right? At least initially. So yeah, let's talk about that, of course. Right.
Okay, so we'll be working together, Bike Ped and CAFD, on this, and I'm going to turn it over to Matt Farrar, who has been an incredible consultant to help us really design the community engagement piece.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. So my name is Matt Fair. I'm a planner here in the Carbondale area. Some of you may know my father, Davis Fair, who is also a planner and former town manager of Carbondale many, many years ago. And I have I've worked as a town planner. I've worked for a nonprofit organization and now doing the consulting side of it. So I've seen planning from all different sides. And when I worked for the nonprofit Community Builders, which is based in Glenwood Springs, I worked on a variety of planning projects all across all across the Western United States, and many of those were transportation related projects. And so when I saw Nikki's letter to the editor a number of months ago, I think it's actually in July, about how Highway 133 is dangerous by design, and I think that video touched on that point pretty well. I contacted her and said, hey, I'm interested. I grew up in Carbondale, and while I may not have the time, I'm happy to volunteer my time. So here I am. And so in terms of community engagement, what we're working on doing is one, as Nikki mentioned earlier, I've contacted the Colorado Department of Transportation, or CDOT, and gathered their official record of crashes for 133 between the intersection of 82 and 133 at essentially the new high school. And so we've gathered that data, and CDOT collects that from various law enforcement agencies. So if there's a crash and it's not reported, they won't have a record of it. And what's really glaring about those records is any close calls that people have where they maybe were close to getting hit, but a crash didn't occur. There's no record of that typically. So we have sort of that baseline of CDOT's official record for the last, I think, 15 or so years, and we've mapped that. And so that gives us sort of a base of crash data. And what we'll be working on in the spring is going out to the community and asking them to provide anecdotal data or data that's missing from sort of the official record, so that we can build on the data that CDOT has. So we'll be asking folks to tell us maybe where they had a close call, where they were crossing the road or biking down the street, or any situation where they may have had a close call that wouldn't be part of the record. And that's a key piece of the kind of overall story of 133 that's missing. So we want to collect that data, and then and we'll have various activities for folks to participate in to get that information. What we've talked about is doing an online survey, both online and paper, because I know not everybody does online. And then also doing some mapping exercises where we'll have a big blown up aerial image of 133, and we'll ask people to use sticky dots or push pins to let us know where they had a crash or a close call. And then we'll also ask them to give us a little detail, and we'll kind of write down, what happened. Were you walking, biking, driving in your car, roller skating, whatever it may be. So we can kind of map out these different crashes and close calls from the community, and also be able to elaborate a little bit and say, kind of here's what's going on, or here's each event and what happened. And ultimately what this will do is create sort of a series of dots all over a map, and they'll start to tell a story. There'll be some patterns that emerge, and there already are some patterns that emerge from the CDOT data, which is fairly limited in its scope. And so this data will really kind of provide the foundation for, in many ways, a portion or a significant portion of the town's transportation master plan, and be data driven. A lot of the grants that are out there for transportation safety improvements, things like that, are require some sort of data driven approach. So it's not just people saying, oh, we need to do this because we want to. There'll be data to support whatever argument's being made. So yeah, our goal is to have a survey and then also some mapping exercises. And in those maps, what we've talked about doing is making those available at say First Fridays, other sort of major community events where we'll be actually going out to the community to gather their input, instead of us saying, oh, we're going to have a meeting on Wednesday night and you all have to come to us. We're going to try and make it easy for people to participate, to really try and engage as many people as possible, because that'll be key, is really getting as much data from the community as we possibly can. And then ultimately, yeah, we'll bundle all that data up, kind of explain what it's indicating. And then I think what I've also discussed with Nikki and Sue and the other CAFD members is maybe offering some initial recommendations for potential improvements that can be made to the 133 corridor to enhance safety for walking, biking, and other types of essentially non-vehicular transit. So that's kind of the gist. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
That's a good summary. Thanks, Matt.
And I guess, so Matt G, and that's essentially the piece that CAFD and Bike Ped, I'm hoping we'll be able to work together on, is the community engagement piece and getting out there and getting that data for both of us.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for us to work together. We've talked about the commission finding partners to work with in the community, and this is a great example of that. Gives us a chance to be in front of the community. And 133 is a safety issue. I mean, we've heard people come to our commission. We've heard it through the comprehensive plan process, that it's a concern for, I think, almost everybody in the community. And I think, and it's also important to connect east and west, because we want people to walk and bike. They're going to have to get to the marketplace and feel when they get on their bike at home, they can complete that trip safely. So, I think it's important for safety and for our long-term objectives of making the town more bike ped friendly. Nikki, just I know, and we were out with CDOT. I think Chris or Colin organized a meeting with CDOT. We walked 133 a month ago, and I know, Kevin, you can maybe give us an update about the roundabout, but also I'm curious to, there's some interim steps you propose in your draft action plan that would be some temporary fixes until some of these long-term things get done. So I don't know if you want to talk about that for a minute.
I think, Matt, I was not there, but Sue did the walk with CDOT and all the people who were there, so she could probably address it better than I can.
Yeah.
So it's great to hear. From what I'm hearing is that the plans for the proposed roundabout at Industry, which had been apparently in a quagmire for a bit. Things are settling down, from what I understand, and the design and all the different controversial issues are settled, and we may very well be on our way to having the planned circle at Industry. But even best case scenario, it's going to be a couple of years before it's complete and solves all the problems that we're all nervous about. And so one of the major things that we proposed in the action plan is that the town get behind a proposal to CDOT to have a temporary crosswalk, so that we should not have to wait until the traffic circle is complete in order to safely cross, so that people on one side can go to the only grocery store that there is on the other side of town. And you shouldn't have, there's some folks that it's not so easy for them to get down to the safe crossing, the established crosswalk. I was talking to a fella in a power wheelchair who says he runs down his battery trying to go two blocks out of his way, across another 2 blocks out of his way, just to get across the street and buy a bottle of milk. And so what we were hoping for was to be able to establish a temporary crosswalk in the area of the marketplace that will be out of the way of the construction as it happens for the circle, that can continue to help to support bicyclists and pedestrians to cross back and forth before all that is completed.
Right. So I think that, as I understand it, there'll be a process to collect data to find out where we might want to suggest improvements to 133. And this interchange, or this circle at Industry Way, is only one of them. Where we see that, we talked about Cowan. We know we've had problems there. And there were suggestions made with CDOT, and we might find other problems. I think we all feel that the problems further up towards Snowmass, or all the way up to Snowmass, especially at the school. So I think the public outreach, as you guys envision it, will cover more the entire stretch from really 82 or Cowan at least to Snowmass, correct? And
Yeah.
okay, and so we'll find out what the anecdotes and the incident reports are, and where we might want to suggest changes and what those might be. But I think it's important that, as you just mentioned, so that these things will take time. They'll take time to work out with CDOT. They'll take time to design. They'll take time to find money. And there may be interim steps that we would want to suggest and work with CDOT to try to get accomplished in the meantime. So unless you guys have more on the presentation side, I think anybody has questions for these guys, that'd be great. I guess not. Everybody, I assume, we talked about last meeting that one of the things we'd work on next year was this connection with CAFE and working with them to collect data and push for improvements on 133. So I think it's a worthwhile project. So it'll be one thing we'll be focused on next year. Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Hey, Kevin, I'm sorry. Well, we got you. We're on this topic. I did hear, as Sue referred to, as noise about progress on the roundabout. Can you just give us a quick update? And there's maybe some people on the call who aren't familiar with that. Rick, Brad, Alex, I don't know if you guys we've talked about it a little bit before at this commission, but Kevin, can you just give a description of where that would go and what the status is?
Sure. So for those of you who may not be completely familiar, Industry is the road that's on the south side of the co-op. It goes back to the east and dead ends kind of behind Cleveland Place. Right now we're dialing in on a design that will actually fit in that intersection and work with the co-op and the surrounding businesses. Once we get that done, we're going to run that plan by CDOT because they graciously offered their assistance in that piece of it. We've been talking with the Board of Trustees about budgeting in future years for the construction of that. And right now, I believe it is in the capital improvement plan for 2024. Is that right, Chris?
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, at least part of it, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, that's actually ambitious when it comes to going from where we are now to that point, but that's what we're striving for. In the process, we're going to have to look for grant opportunities in that because that's going to be an expensive project, probably to the tune of about $3.5 million. And so is that what you were looking for, Matt?
Yeah, that's great. And you know, I think this is important it slows cars down on 133. It provides another crossing. It provides another egress for people coming out of the marketplace, especially trucks coming out of the lumber yard. So I think there are a lot of reasons for us to advocate for this, and I think the town wants it and is focused on it. That's pretty clear. So it's one of many things that I think we can look to try to change on 133. Okay, thanks, Kevin. Okay, getting to the last one, the transportation master plan. And Chris, I'm going to lean on you a little bit here too, just to provide the trustees' take on where we are. You know, this was came up during the comprehensive plan update. It was something that our commission made a recommendation to the Board of Trustees that this be prioritized and be done sooner rather than later. I know that the trustees have budgeted some money to develop a plan, or at least start developing a plan in 2023. And that's what I know. I know you guys are going to be talking about a little bit tomorrow night, and I will be there for that. If anybody else can join or electronically or in person, that'll be great. I think it's going to be at the 3rd Street Center tomorrow night.
Yeah, you might have trouble joining via Zoom because they don't have very good technology
true,
over there for that.
So,
So come over if you want to take part. But yeah, it's very much the need for something along those lines has been heard loud and clear by the trustees, but the shape of it is not entirely, I'm not sure there's total understanding or agreement about the scope and what that means sort of to some degree. And I think the trustees are hoping you all will help us define what are the sort of limits of it. It sounds like there's some exciting things already happening with Matt on the 133 corridor thing, which to me are kind of the core part of the plan, would be trying to deal with that issue. So trying to integrate it with that work to me seems like a really no-brainer to me if you're already starting to collect data and stuff around that.
Right.
And maybe just sort of a enlargement or you know, that could be an important part of it. I think there are probably, you know, sort of high level goals and policy stuff that have been articulated to some degree in the comprehensive plan, but we may want to look at those and put some more detail into them. It seems like, yeah, sort of setting a tone for what we, you know, what we want the town's transportation to look like. And then I think probably on the mapping front, you know, I would hope we could try to start to identify sort of, you know, Kevin has already shown that map of corridors for pedestrians and bikes. I think that could be potentially re-examined and expanded upon for the longer term with the public's help, to try to identify, I think particularly around biking, where can we establish biking corridors that are ideally on really low traffic streets, or tie together, low traffic streets and paths and stuff, and don't have to engage too much with the high traffic car areas of town.
Right.
And then where we have the super high traffic car areas of towns, how to, like the video said, really work on design. And, I think Sue, maybe you were talking about art projects as well in concert with that, around different ways of traffic calming and changing driver sort of mentality, especially, I think on Main Street and more like the off highway zones, especially.
Right. So that's kind of where we are, and looking for input on scope of the plan. And we had an email exchange, Chris, this week, and something in there you kind of stuck with me, what you said. The Board of Trustees are set to approve, I think, make a final approval of and adopt the comprehensive plan update. And if there's anything we wanted to change in there or suggest to change, now would be the time. And I at first I didn't really think there was, but I think we should be clear, and maybe that's where our discussion goes tonight, is what is a transportation master plan? Because if you look at what was included I just included a few pages in the package from the draft of the comp update. And it seems to indicate that, I guess depending upon how you read this, right, that the transportation master plan creates a long-term vision for multimodal transportation, which I think it should. But I also think it's much more than that. And I don't want somebody to pick up this comp plan, a year or two from now and not have, that feedback that that I think we should talk about. What really is a transportation master plan? And, as I was poking around the internet, getting ready for this meeting, there's plenty of them out there, whether from consultants or towns that have adopted them, that give you a little direction. And my feeling is, or my sense is, that a transportation master plan, and I guess this is what I'd like to discuss with the commission, and to the extent that we can talk about a little bit tomorrow night, at least initiate the conversation with the trustees about what should be included. I think it's a plan for how everything moves around town, not just bikes, pedestrians, goods, services. It should include parking, mass transit. It's all encompassing, and all of that, of course, everything affects everything else. So I feel it's a long-term plan. It's not just multimodal, and or not just focused on bikes and pedestrians, and should be a long vision about how everything will move around in town in the future. And it's unlike the plan that really states intentions and objectives, it should give some concrete ways to achieve these. And that's what I think as a commission we'll have, and maybe we'll dedicate a couple of meetings coming up soon to sort of dig into this a little more. But I guess I just love some feedback from the commission members, especially people who've been involved, for the last months with what the comp plan meant and what was going in there, and what you kind of envision being in a master transportation plan. So that's a question.
Matt, this is Matt Fair. I'm happy to chime in. I know I'm not on the commission.
No, please. We loved your expertise. Yeah.
So having worked on comprehensive plans, those are typically high-level documents that kind of your vision, your goals, your policies, things like that. My suggestion for a transportation mobility plan, whatever you want to call it, how people get around town, I would say, depending on the level of detail and policies and goals and stuff like that, and the comp plan update, I would focus more on, as you said, concrete ideas for the future of transportation in Carbondale. And my recommendation would be come up with conceptual street designs, like identify, what 133 Main Street, local neighborhood streets and towns, what those are designed to be like. Really kind of clearly identify the design aspect, and then also have an overall vision for where these different design types are implemented, and kind of what are they trying to achieve in terms of transportation. And then also have kind of a very detailed action plan as far as what are specific things that we can work on. I think because the comprehensive plan is usually this sort of fuzzy, I mean, it's kind of the 30 or 100,000 foot level looking down at the town. I would think a transportation master plan would get a little more detailed and not necessarily focus on goals and policies, since that's what comprehensive plans typically do. More on, I would suggest action, like what can we do? What specifically do we have in mind for different parts of town? And what can we as the town and community work on over the next, say, 10, 15 years? And I think a key piece to that will be 133. I think as the town grows and there's more traffic, there'll be more pressure to deal with 133 and getting out to 82. And as that video alluded to, there's kind of this conflict between efficient movement of vehicles and getting people quickly in and out of town versus the safety and of pedestrian, bicyclists, et cetera. So I think that'll be a key part of that. But yeah, I mean, I guess overall, my suggestion would be really kind of get into as much detail as possible and try and stay away from being too far up in sort of the atmosphere with ideas and things like that.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I would just sorry, I would just add that, yeah, since we do have the comp plan about to be approved, hopefully people will take a look at that and make sure that we have kind of gotten the high level stuff into that plan so that it is sort of out of the way to some degree, and we can, I think, dive down into more of the nitty gritty of what we want to do.
Yes, Sue, go ahead.
Yeah, to me, I love hearing that all the different parts and pieces are going to be considered and hopefully in detail. My concern is what is the mechanism for oversight for this? Whose responsibility will it be to make sure that all the bits and pieces for pedestrians, for bicyclists, for traffic, for all the different details that need to be addressed, whose purview does it come under? Since there's no transportation commission or commissioner, whose responsibility would it be to make sure it all works well together?
That's a good point, and something we should probably mention. My guess would be that's probably part of what's in a plan, which is how are these things get done, and what's the process, the checklist, who's involved. Nikki, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, just to piggyback on what Sue is saying, one of the things that really surprised us as we were pulling together data for the action plan is how many traffic studies there were and how many suggestions there had been made over the last 15 years about 133, very detailed. And then I've been on the commission, on the Bike Ped Commission for more than 6 years, and I never saw one of them until Kevin gave us the access plan this year. So my recommendation, and I don't know how you do that in terms of an action plan for 133, is for all of us on this commission, well, I won't be on the commission after January, is to lay those out and look at all the recommendations that have already been made about 133. And say, okay, are these viable now? Because some of them are like 10 or 15 years old, and somehow be accountable for the money that was put into those plans to take a look at them and say, this is worth doing and this is the priority for this one. And even after Sue and I gathered all of that data, I think there were like 6 different traffic studies. We found a letter to an article in the Post-Independent that talked about the commissioners, the Garfield County commissioners working with CDOT around talking about a roundabout at Dolores Way.
Mhm.
And I had never, ever even heard of that before. So that's my recommendation, is that we take all of that, all of those studies that have been already done and lay them out and take a look at which parts of those make sense now.
Okay, that's a great suggestion. I think it's pretty clear that 133 will be part of the plan. I think that is a big issue for the town. It's bike ped related. And then we'll figure out how to collect the data and make fixes. Beyond that, I think one of the things I'm asking here tonight is, as this comp plan came together and we were spending some meetings talking about the transportation master plan, and even you guys who are recently joined or will be joining the commission, I'd love to hear from you. Just short of those conversations, you might have an opinion. There were other things talked about. Nikki, we spent a lot of time, for example, talking about other forms of transportation, right? Other bus services, those kind of things that, the new technologies that will be impacting transportation over the next, 10, 15 years. I guess what I'm asking, is this a plan, is the transportation master plan that the town wants to develop for bikers and walkers, or is it everything? Is it mass transit? Is it bus services? Is it parking? All of these things. And, just what did you guys envision when we were talking about this, I guess is a question.
Everything.
You think everything, Lori?
I think unless all those pieces are considered, it's not going to be a functional plan. I mean, if the goal is to get people around town safely and happily, we have to consider all those things. That's why I have a concern about how is it tied together? Who coordinates it? Somebody could be looking at parking, but unless it's coordinated with the priority corridors, it's not going to work.
I agree with that. What, Laura, you were trying to say something there?
Yeah, I just think it should be all encompassing. I mean, if it's a master transportation plan that includes every modality.
Mm-hmm. And it's a recognition, like Sue said, that everything impacts everything else, right? And I see others, Brad, nodding your head. Brad, go ahead. You could say something.
Okay. Hi. Yeah, I mean, I agree with those comments completely. And when we talk about multimodal in our sphere of, bike pedestrian centric thinking, that's what we think about. They're talking about us, but they're talking about everything when we say multimodal. And so, and I think it was Sue, who most of you I haven't met before. Nice to see you and meet you here. I think it's just spinning your wheels completely if you're not looking at everything.
Right. Okay. Well, Chris, you're hearing this, and I guess it kind of came up to me because if you look at and I guess I'd ask you to look at this, and I'll point it out tomorrow night. But if you look at the comp plan update, the recommendation section, and then the actual bullet point plans, it can be interpreted as the comp plan is only focused on, bike ped issues. That section 5.1. but then it talks about other issues like parking and transit access as 5.6 and 5.7. And it's not clear to me, if you read this plan, that all of those things should be incorporated in a transportation master plan. And I think that that's something that should be understood. It
Okay.
either is or it isn't by the Board of Trustees and how they want to move forward. That's my point.
That sounds like something we can take a look at. I mean, in our final going through it, I have to take another look at it myself
Yeah,
too. And
I guess what I would say is that it's the feeling of the Bike Ped Commission, as you just heard, that it should be all encompassing, that it should, and part of identifying a scope for the plan should be not only what the Bike Ped wants included for bike and pedestrian safety, but what other aspects of the town want included for future of transportation in town, parking, transit options, whatever it might be. That's to be determined. And I guess what I'm suggesting is our feeling it should be everything. I would propose that to the Board of Trustees, and they may come back and say, no, that's not what we thought. But I think that's a conversation worth having. Okay.
Matt, could I jump in real quick?
Yeah, please, Kevin. Yeah.
Without belaboring the meeting too much longer, can I share the screen one more time to show what is in the board packet for tomorrow as far as suggestions?
Sure.
So we'll see if I can find it. Can you guys see that?
Yeah, you might have to scroll. We're getting sort of the bottom half of the first page. Or is that items for discussion? Maybe that's what you wanted. Okay.
Yeah, it was basically those 9 things that we're
Right.
trying to kind of say, after looking at the comp plan, these are some of the things that came out of this. We think that these are at least worthy of consideration of telling a consultant, we want you to look at these things.
Mhm.
And the intent of that is not to be a final product, but to be more of a conversation starter.
Mhm.
And so, I think a lot of the things that I heard during that discussion are in here, but if there's some that aren't, I would encourage you we can continue to talk about this. We're not asking the board to approve a request for proposals tomorrow night. It's just tell us what you want so we can put it together.
Mhm.
But even the discussion about transit and those things, you'll see number 9. And when we number things, they're not prioritized. They're just a list of things.
Yep.
Number 9 has options for additional transit service.
Yep.
4 is developing a complete streets policy that includes strategies for traffic calming, that kind of hits on what Matt was talking about earlier. So I would encourage you to kind of look at this, and as we continue these discussions of what's this RFP going to be, if there's something on here that shouldn't be, then by all means tell us. But if there's something not on here that should be, share that as well. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, well, it makes sense. And I think that's what we'll be working towards over the next couple of months as we sort of take on this, fairly large project, I think, sort of start to take some bites out of it. And I think, Chris, will have the time, right? Because this is the first time the board's taken it up, and it's going to take a few months to sort of flush this out.
Yeah, we have got plenty of projects on our plate for sure.
Right.
I would just say the only rush would just be it would be more in if there are high level things in the comp plan that you feel like we are missing, that are kind of from that 100,000 foot level, that there's something on that level that the Bike Ped Commission feels like we haven't quite hit the nail on the head right or something. I think we still have an opportunity to massage some of the language.
Yeah, and I think we covered that before. I think before the election, before you were on board maybe, but
Yeah, I would assume that was the case. So
yeah, and we sort of weighed in on that, and I think we were heard on terms of this plan.
Great.
So where we are right now, I think my thought for this commission is to just start thinking about this. Tonight was sort of the first introduction, the introduction for our work on a transportation master plan. So, I guess the homework is to start thinking about what we want to see in it from the Bike Ped Commission perspective, and what a plan should be, and what things that maybe are right in the wheelhouse of Bike Ped, might also be included, as Kevin was suggesting. But I believe that from what I heard tonight, the commission feels it should be an all-encompassing plan. Everything impacts everything else. And I will go tomorrow to the trustees and let them know that we're starting to talk about this. We understand that we should come back to the board with suggestions to what we think should be in it. And that we certainly think it should be a comprehensive plan, taking in all aspects of people moving around town. Okay.
Great.
No questions, comments? Great.
I would just add, yeah, I mean, I like what you were just saying. If people are out and about, trying to keep it on top of your mind about, because if we hire a consultant, they're going to come back to us and ask us in a lot of cases what the issues are. They're going to hopefully gather data from the general populace as well, and from traffic data and stuff. But I think there is going to be a lot of it is going to come back to the commission in terms of identifying those places where there maybe are ideas, because it's easy for a consultant to gather data, but it's not as easy necessarily for them to always see the ideas. So I would definitely keep your thinking caps on around.
Yeah, we want to keep
What to include as you're walking around town or biking or driving or whatever it is.
And the magic in getting a good response from an RFP is to give clear direction, right? So that's what I think we want to help the board and the staff work towards when they go out with an RFP, right? That's sort of our job.
Can I do two quick reminders related to this, since you've talked about them both?
Yep.
So just confirming, the meeting tomorrow night is at the 3rd Street Center, and it will not be on Zoom.
Right.
The meeting for the comprehensive plan is on the 15th. It will be at Town Hall, and it will be via Zoom.
Okay. And I know that the agenda item for you got a big agenda tomorrow night, Chris. I think this will be down the list of ways, but
yeah.
So I certainly understand and I don't think Chris, tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think it's going to be a big in-depth discussion about the comp plan, and
I don't think so. I think hopefully you can give us a good kind of summary of what we're talking about tonight, and I think that's going to help guide the trustees to some degree.
Right. So that's the intent. And if people certainly want to come, I don't think this isn't a call for big Bike Ped participation tomorrow night. I don't think that's necessary, though. Other meetings where that might be the case, tomorrow night's not one of them. But certainly come if you want to hear. Okay. With that, I have the pleasure of opening up for discussion our applications from Rick and Brad. They were at the meeting last month, so people met them. You guys, thank you for your, like I said earlier, your complete and thoughtful applications. You've struck a lot of points that I think we've all been talking about and we're concerned about, and I think we're lucky to have you want to participate. So with that, is there anybody on the commission that has any questions for these two guys?
I don't think so.
Okay. With that, I'd like to make a motion that we invite both Rick and Brad to join the Bike Ped Trails Commission. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, all in favor? Please raise your hands. Okay, and Alex has posted his first vote as a commission member. Thank you, guys. Welcome, you guys. I think Kevin will marshal that through the process of the board, but I'm sure come December, you guys will be full members. And it's perfect timing because we'll be soon saying goodbye to Nikki, who's one of our longstanding members. Goodbye to her as a board member, but not as a partner, as we're discovering. So anybody have any closing comments or thoughts before we adjourn?
Would you please forward to us the contact information for the new members?
Yes, we will. And thank you. Actually, that reminds me, Lori, of something I want to say, which is we have board packages, and some of the things that were referenced tonight, like the CDOT plan for 133, are in this package. It also includes contact information for board members, which I'll work with Kevin to get updated. And then when we meet in next month, we'll have copies for everybody. Okay.
Oh, sounds great.
Good. Thank you for everybody participating. Matt, thank you for donating your time to this project. It's your perspective and expertise is very valuable to us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, guys, we'll see you around. Thanks,
All right.
Kevin.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.